Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Audio Production Town Hall. We're glad you can join us. And each month you'll find us here spouting off on all kinds of subject material related to audio production, whether that be making records, sound for film, games, or even production audio. We'll hope you plan to join us regularly, but if you can't remember that you can always watch the archive on the same link. Today, we're going to be talking about production audio for sound for film. I'm Lee Riley. I'm the course director for Game Audio Production Techniques, and you will find me right at the end of the audio production bachelor's degree. Joining me today, a very special guest, we have Eduardo Calero. He is a sound mixer, he's a boom op, utility. He owns a company called Lime Audio, and he happens to be one of my AP students back from January. He did really, really good in my course. And he's almost at graduation in a very few short months. So awesome. Thank you for joining us today, Eduardo.
Thank you, Professor, for the intro.
Oh, no worries.
Let's see. What are we going to talk about?
I'll send you my invoice later.
Oh, damn. Well, I talk to production about that. Yeah.
So awesome. That's our introduction. So let's get started right at the beginning, right? That's probably the best place to start, because what attracted you, our audience is probably going to say, what attracted you to production audio in the first place? And I know that you did it for the, there was an extracurricular schooling thing going on as well. So if you could kind of explain that a little bit to us, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so how I started in film production. So I started in a different college, in Brooklyn College in New York.
Yep.
And the degree that I worked in was a film production. And so with film production, you study every aspects of production. However, because of that, you're so spread out, you don't really like master in one or the other. And at that time, I was just trying to find my place. And with all the positions in production, I fell in love with audio the most. And I was really digging into audio because in reality, no one likes doing audio. Like I worked in a lot of student thesis films because no one wanted to touch audio. I remember the year that I started my junior year, that's when every thesis film that came out, majority of it, my name was on it because no one wanted to do it. and and it was great. And that's how I was introduced. Uh, However, because the moment that I joined this class, while I was taking all these classes, the moment that I started my audio classes, that's when COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
And the school was not was not prepared for like online teaching.
Yep.
And so after I think it was like a month of class and then COVID hit, um, I really loved my passion for audio that I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna working more on thesis films, working on little projects from being a PA or something, and try to get as much connections as I can during these hard times of COVID. And so I didn't learn a lot about audio.
Right.
Because all we were learning was like they would show us a video and you would listen to the audio and they would just compare and contrast, and it's like that's not how you learn. You got to learn like hands on.
Absolutely.
And so what I did, just watch so many YouTube videos, did so many mistakes on set, unfortunately. But I kept thinking of positive to just keep grinding and keep improving. and investing in myself. And then sometimes I would take the money that I would get from my scholarships, and instead of investing in books, I invested in audio gear. And that's how I did it. Yeah, I was
Well,
living with my
I won't,
parents.
I
And
won't say anything. We'll keep it between ourselves, right? All right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that was from my other college. This college
Oh,
is a whole
okay.
different story. That was the money from the other college.
Okay.
So yeah, and I just kept pushing, going to events, going networking events. I was so nervous and shy because I thought like, hey, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing because I didn't really learn very much. But I've just been watching so many YouTube videos, experimenting with my own equipment, that I was like, I'm just gonna put my best foot forward, just keep a positive attitude, and connect to as many people as I can.
Sure. So
And
along,
then,
along that way, though,
mhm.
what actual when you got into AP, what did you find that was really the you most beneficial to you out of this entire program that really helped you connect and bridge between your previous bachelor's degree?
Oh, so to when I joined AP for Full Sail,
Yeah,
I wanted to continue my studies because there's still that limit of my audio knowledge.
yeah,
So I really wanted to push more, but I didn't want to be stuck with only in film. So I wanted to branch out in multiple sectors so that I know in any project I join or any project I get hired, I'm able to do at least something. I'm able to help out with the knowledge that I earned with Full Sail.
right,
And thankfully I did, because there was a class called show production that I joined,
yeah,
and then that's where we learned about how to live up instruments, pianos, guitars, and mics, and then drawing sketches that we learned like by drawing the blueprints, the floor plan for like how to mic up everything.
right,
And I literally after that class, a month later, I got a feature film project where there's a scene where we're having a poet speak out and doing her performance. And she had a musician on the side that had a guitar, and then she had a mic. And I didn't know anything about miking up instruments. However, because of my experience with that, I was able to draw up a floor plan, show it to the director and the producers. They approved it and they liked it, and then that's how I learned about DI boxes and how to record guitars using DI boxes. And we were able to outsource these products, but I would never have heard of it if I didn't really pursue in like AP.
right,
Because I would have done my own research, but I feel like I would have struggled. But
right.
thankfully, I had these classes to learn.
That's awesome.
Because, yeah, you never know. Like after that, I had like two other projects where I'm miking up guitars, miking up pianos, and miking up singers, songwriters. Because even though they're supposed to be faked out, there are some scenes that it's hard because they want the naturalistic feel of the performance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah,
And in this case, the more you know, the better, more hireable you are, and it's the more knowledge you have, and you can just do anything pretty much on set that you need to do.
exactly.
Awesome. Um, let's see. Yeah, because we were talking about that before. Because of that live aspect, it's very very different from what we're used to on set or even in post production. Whereas it's like a take by take scenario
Hmm.
instead of it being live and it just runs. That's it, right? So there was just you're kind of exposed to that as well a little bit, which may have helped somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it's very similar to live at on those moments, but it's completely different because even though we run through the whole thing in one take during the live, you can do it again. We do another take. So
Yep.
they're gonna do the whole performance all over again, the same thing. Compared to live, it's like it's a
Yeah.
lifetime opportunity. It's like one time and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's a great segue for us to pretty much talk about the workflow on set and
Hmm.
where do you fit into it? The production sound set, the set life. Where does you fit in?
So, For production sound, when I arrive like on set, the first thing I do is try to find my position where I'm going to be storing my gear and where I'm going to be building and setting up. And the first people I try to introduce myself to is either a producer or the first AD,
Right.
which is the first assistant director, who's in charge of everything. So if anything goes wrong or anything you have questions about, that's the person you ask. And with that person, we would talk about what's going to be starting, what's the scene, and then also there's PAs or sometimes second AD sometimes would hand over small mini scripts called sides,
Yeah, I see him there.
and those are like small segments of like the script that we're going to be working on for the day. And you're going to look over it, see what's going on, what you're prepping for, and just make sure that you know how many labs you're working with, who are the actors you're introducing yourself to, because you're looking at the call sheet as well.
Right.
And then after you know all that, your prep work, you go sit down and you set up. I tend to like setting up next to camera or near camera because the most important thing that you should know is time code. And time code is like the internal clock of the whole set. And you, as a sound mixer, are is your job to keep the clock rolling for keep it all synced because that syncs up your recorder to the digital slate if you have one,
Right.
and the camera.
Yeah.
Smart slate,
Yeah.
yeah. And with that job is the most important thing because if one of the devices gets drifted or by even a millisecond, the voices won't match in the edit.
Absolutely.
It'll be more tougher.
So are the
So
cameras
yeah.
always the same? You know, is it, you know, do you have a Sony camera and then everyone in the world uses those, or what's the benefit of you getting involved and talking to the AC and making sure, you know, that you have something to give them some knowledge? What knowledge would
No,
that be?
so AC and DP, they're like the masters of the camera.
Yeah.
Everything except for the audio of the camera, unfortunately. So, as the sound mixer, it's your job to know what how to use the settings only specifically of audio on the cameras. Like I've learned how the only thing whenever you hand over a camera to me, the only thing I know is how to set up the time code.
Right.
Because I literally do my research on every camera and how to set up the time code because every DP or every AC, majority of them just don't know how to get into the settings or don't know how to set it up. And so, and because of that, that's like literally, I remember there was like so many ACs coming up to me, goes like, hey, do you mind setting up the time code? And they're like, I don't know how to do that. Just set it up yourself. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And I just hop in because every camera is different and every camera has a different time code input. So there can be a 3.5 millimeter, there could be
2.5.
5-pin
Yeah.
LEMO, 4-pin LEMO, 9-pin LEMO,
Right.
BNC, so many different cables, and you don't know.
So
So you always ask.
that's job security in a way, right? Where you're
Yeah.
there to help them save the day, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. And then usually I tend to set up time code the first thing I arrive on set
Okay.
because if let's say we're setting up and the camera's being built and then the camera's finished being built, that thing's flying out of that room as quick as possible because they got to set up the frame and then they got to figure out the lighting.
Right.
And if you're wasting time like setting up labs and stuff first and then the camera flies out and then they're ready to shoot, the labs are ready, but then time code isn't ready. And so everything will be out of sync by the time you roll.
Oh wow.
So I tend to do time code first so that the camera can fly out. It doesn't matter if they roll on something, that's fine. It's everything's still synced.
Yep.
But I can have time to work on the labs and then lab everyone else and then boom. Because they will hold on labs, but they will get furious if they're holding on time code.
Right. And also, are you responsible for like on communications on set as well? Like it's IFC, right? For example, are you for that?
IFB, yes.
You have been,
So
right?
that is, yes, that is also our responsibility. And what IFBs are is literally what the producers would hear on set. that is coming from my mixer. So if I'm recording and the director wants to hear the performance, they would have an IFB, or like
Yeah.
the popular one that's known is Comtech,
Tech, right? Yeah.
and which is the one that I own. And then Comtech, they're able to hear the performance. They're able to know, like, they could able to share notes. So they're watching the frame. Let's say they're in another room and watching in a different monitor.
Yep.
They will be able to hear the performance without IFB or Comtech,
Sure.
and they're able to like give notes, and also they won't question you because they're listening to the audio mix, and then sometimes they're like, "Is this sounding good?" I'm like, "You can hear it yourself. There you go."
Right. Yeah, because that's off somewhere on set where
Off somewhere.
Video Village, right? Kind
Mhm.
of Video Village kind of setup there. Okay.
And
Awesome.
then the two people that usually gets these IFBs are the director and then the scriptee or script
Okay.
supervisor.
Right. We'll talk about the script supervisor very shortly because they have a very, very important position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to talk about as well. So I think we need to talk about how important is it that you get good production audio for the overall thing. You were telling me a little bit before we started some situations whereas you're walking into the job to replace somebody, but how important is it?
It is super important. Like, production audio is literally what makes the film. Because if you watch a film and if you watch it, we're not in the silent era no more.
All
We're
right.
making movies with audio now. And so, yeah, the reels. And so nowadays everyone wants to listen, wants to hear. And when people listen, they're like so focused when they're watching on the film that if they hear one little mistake, it like switches off their reality.
Yes.
And that it's so important that we get clean audio, because if there's a mistake and they hear that and then they switch off the reality, they'll get distracted and they will not enjoy their view of it.
Sure.
And so it's our job to get clean audio, clean recording, so that all the information is transferred to the client or to the viewer,
Yeah.
and it's us and the viewer can have like a pleasant experience.
Exactly. So Eduardo, tell us how do you get that? How do you get clean production audio? How important, for example, for your preparation, for example, do you get to read the script at all?
Mhm.
Do you have you done blocking with it's like a rehearsal, if you will, at all?
So, it in the ideal world, there would be like rehearsals even before you will be able to watch, like before we even go on set. Us as sound mixers, ideally, we would like to go to the set and like check out the set if there's like any refrigerators we need unplugging, if we need like any wooden floors that we got to put carpets down, if there's like any little thing that makes noise, like even like cat water. It's pretty popular nowadays with everyone having their automated cat water, and it makes so much noise. It was, yeah. So I had to hunt some of those down because they're always hidden somewhere, and you gotta like unplug them. Um,
Okay,
but it's
interesting.
good to know that it's ideally, yes, we would like to go and scout, do a tech scout with it. But as us audio people, we're working constantly
Sure.
because there's always work around for audio.
Yeah.
So we're never always there. And so it's always best to prep, knowing in every set, learning about what makes noise and try and disconnect it before we even start rolling. And watching the script, figuring out if the character is going to yell. And sometimes the script doesn't tell that.
Right.
There was one time where I was finally able to go to a table read, and I found out, oh, this character is going to yell in this scene, and it didn't really read in the script that they were going to do that,
Right.
but in the performance they were doing it. And so I put a little note saying like, okay, mindful that they're going to yell at scene 2A. And then I was like, okay, great. And the most important one is, if you're ever going to do a oneer, ideally you would want to rehearse like as many times as you want. And I've done many oneers, and it's usually I'm rehearsing on set. But there was one time that I rehearsed during rehearsal, during their table read, because after table read they had a rehearsal on set, like before we even were filming, or before production even arrived. It was just me, a cameraman, the actors, and the director, and that's it. No one's inside the building. And I just arrived, watched the frame, and see where they're moving. And with that wonder, I was able to like summarize it for when we started filming what we're gonna do and how the movement's gonna be, and also if I need assistant or not, if I need a boom operator because it's going in around a tight corner.
Right.
So yeah, it's like a lot of prep work that you just got to be ready for.
I'm just amazing. I'm amazed that you're actually saying that you're involved in some kind of a table read. That just blows my mind. But that is fantastic, though.
It is so rare that it happened. And I
Yeah.
remember I was talking with this director because he's so passionate about audio, and then he asked me to be at a table read, and it was my first time arriving. And I was like, okay, this is very weird. But then while I was there watching a whole table read, everyone was questioning, why is the audio person here? But I learned so much that I was able to prepare, and I was able to bring so much equipment that I needed. And if I didn't do the table read, I would have been scrambling figuring it all out on set.
Right. Because after all, the goal here is to capture the actor's performance, and we don't have a lot of time to do that, right? So the actor is saying their lines, whatever, they may take multiple takes, but if you just briefly just touch on that, the fact that when something does go wrong, and it can go wrong on set, you could be a person that's brought in to fix that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you have done recently. You don't have to name any names or anything, but of course you. But
should I tell the story or without names?
Make it pretty. No.
You kind of want me to ask that.
Very, very. No, don't name any names, but keep it fairly short. But you know.
Okay, so there was a shoot that I did, and I won't say any names, but I arrived on this shoot. What happened was I finished a different shoot. And at midnight, I got a call for a shoot because they couldn't find a sound mixer last minute. So I told them, hey, I won't be available tomorrow because I'm so tired and I can't make the call time.
Yep.
But I can make the second day. And they were like, okay, that's fine. We'll keep you on hold. So they hired someone else. They hired this person. This person arrived on set. They did their job on the first day. And then on the second day, I got a call while eating lunch saying, Eduardo, what's up? So we got this audio person, but for cheap, but it was not working. Like the audio came out terrible.
Yeah.
They have an editor on set that's checking everything. So after the first day of the shoot, they played back all the audio. It was so echoey. It was terrible, apparently. And then they found out that the shotgun mic broke. And that's what was the cause. Right. And so he didn't say a word. He didn't ask production, hey, can I find a rental to replace it? No, he didn't say a word of anything. And he was just going to continue recording with a broken shotgun, the whole project.
Wow.
And so let's say if anything goes wrong, please like be truthful and tell production there's their job to solve the problems, because if you stay quiet, that's how you lose your job.
Yeah, because please don't tell me it was multiple days. Was it like in the same day?
It was just the first day. And then during the second day, because they finally talked about it during lunch, that's when I got called.
Okay.
So after lunch, I got the call saying, hey, how fast can you get here? I was like, 30 minutes. I was like, perfect. I just arrived. So while lunch was happening, I was driving to set. I arrived on set. I had a full valet. Everyone like grabbed my stuff, and they sent me to there's two houses. They sent me to holding house where all the actors are, and they told me build there. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I didn't know this until after that. At the same time while I was arriving, the sound mixer was getting released. And so he was leaving the production house where all of productions is. And so he was getting removed. And then from there on, I took replacement of the second half of the day. And then I was solving all the issues where they couldn't get context. Us, the boom operator didn't have audio feed, so I was able to provide audio to the
Wow.
boom operator, which is something important,
Uh,
and boom ops should have their own audio.
right.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be hearing what they're actually recording, I guess.
Exactly.
What an
And
amazing
so,
concept.
yeah. And so from then on, I was just remembered I just took over, and then at the end of the shoot, everyone was just telling me, literally, you made the film. Like, if it wasn't for me coming in so last minute, even though I was eating lunch, I was like, I dropped my lunch and went straight to set.
Awesome. So you saved the day, literally, or
Yeah.
saved the production.
Mm-hmm.
Better. That's a good story. You I wanted to just touch on real briefly before talking about your gear, your equipment. I know this is, this is pretty important because I'd imagine that some of our viewers here always want to know
Mm-hmm.
what's the latest and greatest and what people actually use. But just one more question before we get into that. You touched on when I talked to you the other day that we said about ADR on set.
Oh my
Now,
God.
your thoughts on ADR on set, they were quite mixed, of course. Can you just share with us a little bit about that, just real briefly?
Okay. As a sound mixer, I hate having to do ADR on set if it's to fix whatever performance it is, because ADR is meant for you to be after the shoot. Let's say you're editing, you're
Post production.
seeing the scene, post production. You're watching the scene, you're saying, hey, it didn't sound good, or you didn't like the performance. That's when you go to a rental house, a recording house, or at someone's apartment and then just record more audio, and you're watching the scene and you're having to say, the actor has time to watch, see, and try to get into the performance. But directors sometimes doesn't have the budget for it,
Yeah,
or they're like really scrambling. And I understand, I have the patience for it, but I just don't like it when actors literally finished an emotional scene or finished themselves being in character, and then they're forced to be that character one more time because the performance wasn't as great as they wanted it to be. And so let's say we get this audio, it's going to be pointless because it's not going to match the lips.
yeah,
Because ADR, you're trying to match the lips as close as possible because we're going to see them talking. And if it sounds like they're pronunciating completely different from what you're seeing, it's not going to sync up well. So it's pointless and it's like a waste of time. And sometimes I'm trying to get home. I'm not here to do another ADR session,
right.
like on set. Yeah. And everyone else is exhausted.
Yeah,
And
because
then
it's
the only
fast
reason
paced, right? It's
it's
still
fast
fast paced.
paced. We're
Yeah,
working on speed. We're trying to get there and try to get home. We're not, sometimes, if you're lucky, you're working on hourly basis. That's like
right,
higher budget.
right.
But sometimes you're not. You're working on a day rate.
Okay.
And whatever money you work during the day is like that. And the longer you're working there,
Yeah,
the more time you're wasting and you're like exhausted.
yeah, because it could be 12-hour days up to whatever,
Hmm.
12-hour plus, right? So
I've
how
done
do you,
18 hours before.
wow. So
Yeah.
how do you get the files? What happens when, let's say, you're wrapping up for because it's a daily thing, right? You're wrapping up for the day. What happens
Hmm.
with your files? And here's now where you're going to talk about your relationship with the script supervisor, right? So,
So, yeah. Let's start before we get into files. Let's start at the beginning of the day a little bit.
okay,
So when you first start, the first thing you're gonna do to set up your data is you have to set up your metadata, which is on your mixer. The important reasoning why is because you have to label everything from what each track is, what's the name on each track. Let's say John is on track A and then Bridget is on track B, and then your boom mic is on track four, track five. So one, two, and then four. So that's three tracks.
yeah,
So it's important to label everything uh, for each track so that later you can send that to the DIT. Also, regarding to scripty, script supervisor, you have to know what the scene you're recording. So let's say we're gonna start with scene 1A. So I have to know that, so I put it in my metadata,
Yeah.
so I can write it, say like, hey, this is scene 1A, take one.
Yeah.
And then Scripty will write on her notes or his notes, the scene 1A, take one, and then all the notes for what's going on and if there's any error.
So what is
Now
the
there's a
A? What is
third,
the A? Sorry, because that's the camera angle, right? So it's the shot
yes.
itself. So you got the scene,
So
the shot, and the take.
exactly.
Yeah.
So usually it's tend to be scene one is the master shot when it doesn't have a letter.
Yeah.
But some people don't do that. Some people like to start with scene 1A, which is like the individual shot. So like scene one, shot A, take one.
Yeah.
And then some people have thing organized on a call not a shot list,
Yep.
and then they have individual shot lists, and it's Scripty's job to tell not only me, the sound mixer, but also the second AC, because he's gonna write it on the slate. What's the next shot that's coming up?
Yep.
So they have to let us know. Oh, the next shot is gonna be 3A, 3 apple.
Right.
Okay, great. So we updated on our stuff and make sure that we're on sync, because all three of us has to be make sure that we all have the same file,
Yeah.
the same scene, so that when the editor sees everything, they're able to look into it.
Sure.
So they're able to look into my notes, Scripty's
Delicate
notes.
dance, a delicate
Yep.
dance between all of you on set, and eventually all that
Yeah.
that language, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
all comes together on that documentation, and for the editor, because the editor or dialogue editor is going to need that, right, eventually.
Yeah, and it's always important. So make sure whenever you're about to roll, and if they're saying, "All right, let's start rolling," let them know. Give me 2 seconds, because you have to always make sure it's updated. Because I know directors are impatient and they want to keep rolling, but you have to make sure all of your data is correct, because you're gonna be working long hours, and if it's messed up, it's like, oh, you can be able to fix it later. But if everything's messed up, you're gonna waste so much time. You're gonna try to memorize, what did I put, what was scene one, what was scene 1A.
Exactly.
So always make sure. And then at the end of the day, let's say we all wrapped up, we made sure all the data is correctly inputted into the system. There's a button where they're called the sound report inside everyone's recorder.
Yeah.
You got to look for everyone. It's completely different where it is, but there's always the sound report button. And you click on sound report, and nowadays it will just automatically print out what you recorded throughout the whole day, and it will print out a little sheet. And this little sheet you're able to give to DIT,
Yeah.
and DIT will receive your audio plus the sound report, and then they will get all the information of what you recorded and any notes you left.
Awesome. So that's a digital imaging tech. That's right at the end of the day, puts everything on the hard drive. That will eventually go to a video editor and eventually to audio post. Right?
Audio post, yeah, because I've worked in so many shoots, like audio post wise, and I think only one out of the audio posts that I've done, that on set they actually gave me a sound report.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because these low budgets, they don't understand, and it's very important about audio reports.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so useful.
There's two things that we need to cover really quickly, because we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of getting towards probably another 10 minutes or so now, I guess. And that really is like let's just talk a little bit about your equipment and
Okay.
what you need to do to kind of get through your day.
All right. So equipment wise, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see
Oh
it?
yeah, yep, just about, yeah.
That's about right.
Yep.
This is my main kit, which is a Zoom F8N Pro.
Okay.
And right now I have two of these Electrosonics,
Yep.
but right now I took one out. And so this is the main system, and it's all in a K-Tech bag.
So that's a Zoom 8 channel.
Zoom F8N Pro, so it can take up to 8 channels
Okay.
of audio. And also it takes 2 extra channels, which are mixed channels, left and right. So a total of 10 tracks.
Yep.
and it will take two outputs of main outs and one sub out, which could split into two. And that's usually I put the sub outs for my boom ups, and then the main out for either a cam hop, which is like sending audio to the camera,
Yep.
or wirelessly, or the FIB, which we talked about, to send audio to the clients.
There you go, to the Comtex.
Yes. And then that's my main kit that I use.
Okay.
And then my wireless boom, I usually have like a Sennheiser on the side. I'll show you in an image later. And then this is my backup kit, which I use on set for like travel gigs or low, small, little budget projects. So this is the MixPre
Mixed
6
Okay.
Mark II
Yep.
with, of course, electros.
Yep.
And then in here is where I put my battery, if I can open it up. There it is. Here's how my battery situation is.
And of course it's lime green.
Yes, Lime Audio. And then here's like a battery cup that I have
Right.
that I use it to send audio to.
Okay.
And so
that's not only your backup rig, that could be a rig that you're using on an even smaller budget just in case.
smaller budget or even traveling like
Yeah.
I just did when coming back from Alabama recently.
Okay. Yep.
Because I'm only able to fit like a book bag and a small Pelican case, and that's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then for time code, I use
Oh, wow.
the Tentacle Syncs,
Yeah.
which is great. It's fantastic. It works really well for just time code. That's all I need. I don't need nothing more.
Awesome.
And then labs, I have
There you go.
still sticking to the Lime Audio.
Lime Audio green.
Yeah. So labs, I have the Cos 11s currently.
Yeah, I love the Cos 11. That's the most requested in audio post-production, so it must be good on set then. There you
It's
go.
super tiny.
Cos
I don't know.
11D.
Cos 11D. They're
Yeah.
this is a pod.
Yep.
There it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Super tiny in comparison. So easy to hide. I've hidden it like you
Yeah.
see the outer edge here.
Yep.
So you can put it like right here on the edge. Let's say like it's a tank top or a tank top shirt, and you see the wire throughout the shirt.
Right.
But here it's like really thick. So I ran the wire
Run it around.
on the
right.
edge of the shirt and then toss it through the back, and then you're not able to see anything.
Right.
And I didn't even have to put any fur on it. I just left it with tape on, and it's able to capture clean audio. And yeah, that's my labs. What else should I show them? Oh, should I, the new thing?
Yeah, there's one more thing,
think-
and then we can go into the last. I guess we've got a few more minutes, I think. No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we've got a few more minutes. Oh yeah, okay. You're
this little guy.
Yes, that's pretty important.
So for anyone here who's like interested in boom mapping, of course, if you're like on a low budget gig, you're working by yourself, you're looking at frame, you're watching the monitor, you're always like, oh, what's my frame line? You ask whatever the DP is, and you're constantly asking because you don't know what the frame is. You don't know what's your frame line.
Right, you gotta
watch if the boom's going in. You gotta make sure it's not in there.
Right.
And so I recently watched a video from Ken Strain. I believe that's what, I'm sorry if I butchered the name, but Ken Strain. And he's a big boom operator, and he has a master class in boom operating. So I recommend watching his videos. And while I was watching a video, I saw him pull this thing up. And this little guy,
there you go,
fit right on your wrist. And you can put your phone here, and you can watch monitor while you're booming.
There you go.
And I brought it in on set, and then everyone thought, wow, that's like so futuristic. That's awesome. But it's like something like this, $20, $30. And you're able to watch frame because you would have your own monitoring system, which I use Hollyland, and then I'm able to transmit to my phone.
Yeah.
Or B, if it's like on a bigger scale production, you will have a person called a VT operator.
Yeah.
videotape operator back in the day, or video assistant.
Yeah.
And they are in charge of providing monitors to your director, to all the directors, the production, the
Yeah.
client, and they would record the playback.
Right.
And so that's their job, and provide dailies.
Yeah.
Because back in the day in film,
Yeah.
you only record, and then you only will be able to watch back when you go back to the lab. But
Right.
there are VTs who are able to record this on set and then provide playback. And so you would ask them, hey, can I get a connection to my phone? And sometimes they have it. And so you connect it to your phone and you're able to watch the frame right here. And so while you're booming, you watch like the rehearsal, or even booming, and you watch, move around and see what the frame line is. And you're all good. Because back in the day, like starting out, it's like you just got to memorize all these lenses. But now we're like in the digital era, we're
Yeah.
growing, and so
Sure.
there's more technology, more techniques being learned. And so I'd rather not waste time trying to memorize this and memorize the pattern of the actors, and just have this while I'm booming.
Because there's only so much you can do. I mean, you're already saving everyone's butt on set anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's always by yourself. It's always by yourself. And occasionally you get an assistant, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I just wanted to double check because it got probably to that time where I wonder if we had any questions from anyone out there. I didn't hear it. John, did you have any?
Yeah, we have somebody who's kind of curious about the business side of things, doing freelancing, contracts, expenses, taxes, so on.
Well, the tax side is, of course, make sure you keep track of all your expenses, what you spent on set specifically, like your food, your equipment, everything. That's will count into your deductible. Also, how much you've earned. Because here's a little thing that I learned is like if you earn more than how much you spent, you're spending more on taxes.
Yeah.
But if you spent way more on equipment than what you've earned, you don't pay much in taxes. If anything, you get money back. So that's like a rule of thumb. And I personally, not the taxi savvy person, so I have an accountant, and so I would keep track of what I've spent on, make sure I have all my invoices all set up on a list, and then I just hand it over to my accountant. And then regarding to like negotiation on trying to like make sure you get a proper rate, it's always stand your ground on what you believe you're worth. If you're worth $100, just say $100. If you're worth $1,200 a day, you're $1,200 a day. You look around, you see how much equipment you invested, and you explain to the client, hey, listen, I'm providing this amount of equipment. I've worked on these projects. I've worked on this. This is my rate, and I'm standing by it. And it's like, hey, if you're able to work and flexible, which for me is like, if I know I'm working on a big client, big budget project that they're able to provide the money that you need, that you're requesting, then I push for it. But if it's like a lower budget, then it's like, hey, listen, I understand I'm in the grinding mindset. I'm able to work with it, but there's a limit. I try to find that balance where I'm earning enough money to live, but at the same time, I'm trying to help out like other creatives that are trying to work on this set and trying to make stuff so that in the future, hey, you you talk and you think like, oh my God, I earn so little right now. But these clients, let's say you arrive on shoot and you're like, everyone loves your work, so your mindset and the way you work and everything, that grows. And so people will recommend you out. And so even though it's low budget now, there's future projects that it will even bigger budget.
And also with to expound upon that, if you had more equipment than what you really needed, right? And you felt, I need to go ahead and sell this equipment because, I don't know if I'm ever going to use it. Is that an issue, right? Because you're always going to find a situation whereas you might be able to use that equipment.
Yeah, I've spent so many money on where I'm like, oh, should I sell this? I'm not using it. And then like next day I'm like, oh wait, I need it and I have it. And so it's just like seeing what you're constantly working in, and if you're using this product a lot, or if you know, oh, I'm gonna be working on this product in the future, so I should keep this equipment just in case. It's better to just keep it
Yeah,
and then sell it once you make enough money to replace it with a better option.
right. Um,
Like I've done,
and plus, you can charge for it, right? Because you could always,
yeah,
because
you
you're
could
in a
always
rental
charge for it.
situation. You're in a rental
Hmm.
situation, whereas your equipment is a line item on a particular budget for production.
Yeah, you're renting out your equipment. It's not only you're providing a service from you, but you're also renting out your equipment. And like make sure every time you go on set, try to ask for a COI, because
Right.
COI is very important, because if something happens on set and your equipment's damaged and you don't have insurance,
Yeah.
production can't provide you to replace it
Right.
unless they have a COI.
Okay. And I must admit, in audio post production, I get a bit jealous of the fact that production audio people could go line item. This is what we're going to need to actually record something and get it done right. Whereas in audio post production, oh, what's your price for that? And it's just so, that's a little bit different. But that's for a whole other conversation. Of course.
Thanks.
Do we
Yeah.
have any other questions at all? No more questions. Okay. Now this is I think a very important question right at the end, because we've talked about everything else. Let's introspect a little bit by going back and saying, if you had any advice for a current or soon to be audio production student, how would you what would you say? What would you? I mean, the sky's the limit here on really what you would, because some students may be thinking sometimes that it's just a little bit too much. What is your scope on it?
My mindset on that is just don't quit. Like, been on sets because like I have a positive attitude. I try my best on every shoot. And even though the shoots may be small, maybe like tiny or low budget, or sometimes I'm not even on set for months and I'm like struggling, frustrated, I'm just like, all right, what do I do to improve myself? In those moments where I'm not doing anything, I'm doing research on equipment. I'm doing research on the latest techniques to learn for when I arrive on set. I'm just constantly pushing myself to improve my quality so that the next time I'm on set, I always put my best foot forward and always tell everyone, hey, I'm here because I want to provide clean, professional audio. So it's just not quitting because just because you're struggling to find work.
Yeah.
And I know some people, and people like do double shifts. Like they work and then they try to find time to go on sets. Remember, you're a freelancer, meaning you're able to work on your time and your schedule. So if you have, instead of free time uh, after work, you can accept more work by on the days that you're not working. And so it's a very packed and very tough schedule. And I understand because I've worked at Macy's, working on sets, but also balancing that schedule of like, hey, I have a commercial shoot right after did my shift on Macy's. Can I leave earlier? And my boss would say, okay.
Right.
But it's like, but after I believe I was only there for like 3 or 4 months in Macy's that time, and then I left because the what's it called? My boss was like, "Hey, you're doing very good. You're doing amazing, and know you have like such a strong mindset. You're a hard worker. Just keep pushing, keep going forward. And if there's any fail safe, you could come back to Macy's." I have not come back to Macy's ever since.
Yeah. There you go.
It's because
Wow.
you just got to keep grinding, keep pushing, and keep accepting. Remember, we're even though I don't consider myself a professional, and people consider me as a professional.
Yeah.
It's because I'm constantly learning. And I don't think I'll ever call myself a professional because I want to keep learning and learning more different routes, different options.
Right.
That's why I came here to Full Sail, because like I didn't want to stick to only doing audio for film. I want to do audio for like anything.
Yep. And I think that's a awesome positive attitude and an outlook to keep moving forward with. You're always constantly learning. You've got something to give to somebody, and you can balance the, those dishes, if you will, those plates, spin those plates, and you can just kind of do that somehow because you're online, right? But you're still able to do it somehow, but you keep moving forward. So
yeah, and I feel like some of these professors are frustrated why I'm submitting late assignments.
Oh.
But I'm telling them I'm working. I'm sorry. Be patient. But every professor understands. Every professor understands. You let them know in advance, saying like I have a set and it's hard for me to submit late. Every professor understands, and they will give you the extra time you need.
Okay, very good, awesome. Well, I think it said. Look, thank you for joining us today and giving us your knowledge of what it is out there. And with production audio, of course, we could do number 1, number 2, number 3, tons of these. But thank you for coming in. I mean, we hope you enjoyed hearing about it today, just as much as we enjoyed talking about it. Remember that each audio production town hall is a monthly event. So that happens generally the last Monday of each class month. So keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for information about next month's town hall. We'd like to thank the show production students this month for Audiovisual Technologies class, and the course director, John Coast, for handling all of the behind the scenes and putting up with my divaness. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Great job, team. And thank you again, Eduardo. And thanks for joining us.